executive session?
So made.
Okay, got a second? Okay. Bob's motion, Wayne's second.
We got a little bit.
Little bit, don't we? Okay, Mr. Zakowicz, this is for certification of executive session.
Yes.
Mr. Bostic, Mr. Ball,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Parsons.
Yes.
Ms. Garrett? Yes. Myself, yes. Would you do the certification, Mr. Parsons?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I move to certify that to the best of our knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and only such public business matters were identified in the motion, go into executive session were heard, discussed, or considered in executive session.
Okay, Mr. Z?
Yes.
Mr. Bostic?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Parsons?
Yes.
Ms. Garrett? Yes. And myself, yes. We'll stand now for the pledge. Mr. Zakowicz?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Hooker, do we have any delegations this evening?
Madam Chair, there are no individuals who wish to speak before the board at this time.
Okay.
Action. We got one. We got one.
We have one.
Let's bow our hearts for a word of prayer. Almighty God, we thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to come out today and celebrate the freedoms that we have by doing the school business for Russell County. And we just thank you for the board and for those gathered here today, and just ask that you give them the wisdom of Solomon to lead the county according to your will. In Christ's holy name, amen.
Okay, Dr. Hooker, do you have any adjustments to the agenda?
Madam Chair, there are no adjustments. We're ready to move forward.
Okay. Do I have a board motion that we approve to finalize the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let me get down here to the minutes. Okay, we have board meeting, June 6th. Need a motion that we approve those minutes.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson, Mr. Parsons. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zakowicz. All in favor?
Aye.
The special called meeting, that was June 16th. Do we have a motion that we approve those minutes?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes for June 16th and June 23rd. And
Okay.
if we can, in one motion.
Okay. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any recognitions for this evening, Dr. Hooper?
Madam Chair, we have no recognitions for tonight, but we will resume those recognitions in August.
Okay, thank you. The board had the opportunity to look at the bills and the accounts.
Make a motion to approve the bills, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bostic. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. All in favor of paying the bills?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have resignations and retirements.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have a small list for the board to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion for approval of the resignations.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion to approve the resignations and retirements as presented on our agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Zakowicz. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, all approval of new personnel or transfers? Well,
Madam,
no, first off,
yeah.
this is your personnel roster
Yes.
for the year.
Madam Chair, we have a list of all the personnel in Russell County to be approved for the FY '23 school year.
Do I have a motion from a board member that we approve our personnel roster for 2022, 2023?
I make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Garrett. All in favor?
Question.
Yes.
Dr. Hooker, any changes been made on this since we gone through on our,
No.
okay.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Dr. Hooker, our new personnel and transfers.
Yes, you have a list as well to be approved by the board tonight.
Okay, do I have a motion that we approve new personnel and transfers?
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I oppose.
You opposed? Okay. One opposition. Okay. Dr. Hooker, you
Okay.
want to address our
Yes.
crisis plan?
Yes. Madam Chair, we have two action items tonight. The first one is the approval of our school's crisis plans. Crisis plans are reviewed and revised annually by each school. The VDOE requires school boards to review and approve the plans annually as well. We are asking for board approval for the FY '23 crisis plans for each school.
Thank you. Do I have a board member to make a motion that we approve our school's crisis plans?
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Garrett. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Dr. Hooker?
Dr. Hooker, I would like to ask that we check in and see how much the metal detector would cost.
Okay.
Add that.
Okay, the second action item is the request approval of superintendent's designee. The Virginia Department of Education requires the board's approved superintendent designee. I, the superintendent, request Ms. Angie Farmer be so designated.
Okay, do I have a motion that we approve Angie Farmer as?
Can I make a motion for someone else?
Sure.
I'm making a motion we use Greg Mullins.
Okay. We have,
I'll make a motion for Angie.
okay. Okay. We will take a vote for, we'll take a vote first for Ms. Farmer. We'll just do a roll call. How's that?
Okay.
Mr. Zacharidja?
Yes.
Mr. Bostic?
Take one for who now?
For the first one, Ms. Farmer?
No.
Okay. Mr. Ball?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Parsons?
Yes.
Ms. Garrett? Yes. And myself, yes. Okay, a vote for Mr. Mullins. You done voted. Mr. Bostic? Yes. Mr. Ball?
I'm going to abstain again.
Okay. Mr. Gibson?
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Hooker, you're for your first reading of the policies.
Yes, we have two information items, and the first one is our first reading of policies. Each year, adjustments are made to align our student conduct code with legislative actions from the spring and new VDOE requirements. So we have made those adjustments for FY '23 for the board to review at this time.
Okay.
And then our second information item is if Mr. Zacharidja would like to give us an update on the governor's school.
Yes, I'd be happy to. 2022 has so far been a pretty busy year at the Linwood Holton Governor's School. As most of you know, we're a virtual school, completely virtual. All our classes are online, either asynchronously, or they're either that or they have them on tape. But anyway, even though we are a virtual school, and we deal with quite a few of the very, very best students throughout all of Southwest Virginia, we've had a very difficult time, just like all the other schools, making the adjustment back to a more normal type of learning. And so far, things are going pretty good for us. In February, we approved a revision of our school constitution and bylaws regarding the number of voting members needed to constitute a quorum. We voted unanimously to establish that only 4 members of the governing board need to be present to vote on any matter. It had been 6. We have 10 that serve on this board. We also approved the member school division's fee per student at $200 a year. They're able to take as many classes as they can work into their schedule at that fee. And this is the 3rd year in a row we've been able to offer that rate of $200 per student. That's one of the cheapest rates probably in the nation for this type of school. Now, our old rate was $500, which was considered a bargain even then, so this is way more affordable for the school divisions. The enrollment during the spring semester was 278 students, with 378 students for the entire year, keeping in mind again that many of these students take multiple classes. In April, we approved the FY23 budget at $1.6 million, which included a $3,000 per teacher raise based on the Washington County pay scale, who happens to be our fiscal agent. We also voted to accept the retirement of longtime administrative assistant Sylvia White. She'd been there for 22 years of the 25 years this school's been in existence. She knew the school better than anybody and how we operated, and it's going to be some tough shoes to fill to replace Sylvia. We also approved hiring 2 more additional teachers, Amanda Slaughter to teach physics and Hannah Pollard from Abington to teach chemistry. April also marked our 5-year evaluation from the State Department of Education. We have to go through this periodically, and the evaluating committee came down. They were very pleased with what we were doing with the governor's school. They made several commendations as well as recommendations on ways that we can improve the governor's school. And we're busy working on a plan right now to put into effect. We've got to have that in by October to continue to make our improvements. What the committee was primarily pleased about, and as far as the governor's school was concerned, was not only the price, like I said, $200 per student from each school division, and that doesn't even make up a big part of our operating fees, getting these fees, but it works out pretty good for everybody, and they were pleased with that. They were also pleased with the responsiveness of our administration and our faculty to student needs. And one of the things they pointed out that stood out better than anything was our PSAT training classes. And we're getting ready to start those here in just a moment. And I'll mention a little bit more about that. The biggest criticism we had, again, was a lack of a strategic plan and how to better serve the community, and we're working on that. We met again on June 21st and approved an additional block into our schedule for chemistry because we've had such a demand for that throughout the region. We put in 2 extra classes, one asynchronous and one synchronous. Now, we closed out the 2022 school year with a carryover of $1.2 million in our budget. They allow us to carry over what money we have left over each year because we don't get any operating money until the end of the fall semester. So that gives us money to operate through the summer and into the fall. And I think I'll mention, just for the sake of your all's knowledge, we have limited revenue resources for the governor's school. but it mainly comes from 4 sources. State basic aid, which usually amounts to about $900,000 a year. The Virginia Public School Authority kicks in about $12,000. The school division enrollment fees that I mentioned at $200 fee accounts for about $500,000 of or rather $770,000 of our operating expense. But the biggest source of our operating expense comes from our community college reimbursement money. And that's usually around $500,000. We're getting back about 90 to 95% of that tuition that we pay for our students. And that's on a descending scale, and eventually it'll go down to about 60%. But once the pandemic hit, the state decided to just leave that fee as it is, that percentage, and it'll start going down probably next year. As far as we had a carryover, like I said, of $1.2 million, and that gives us a total of about $2.7 to $2.8 million in total revenue. So we're in excellent financial shape there, and it pretty much is self-sustaining. No brick and mortar building to maintain, no staff to maintain other than our faculty and our directors and so forth. So we can get by a whole lot cheaper than a typical school. We're looking at about 350 people that have put in applications so far for the fall semester, and we're predicting about 300 students in the fall. The SAT preps classes start August 19th and 20th. The students that have signed up and been approved to take those will have to take 1 full day of classes, either the 19th or the 20th, and then it's 1 session on Monday nights per week for about 7 weeks until the SAT test, which has been scheduled for October the 1st. And this is mainly a benefit we offer the students of the governor school, but if we have enough room left over in the enrollment, a few spaces left, they will take in other students, and one day we may even expand that even to where we can satisfy any student that wanted that class. But anyway, I'm going to leave on this. The governor school and the higher ed center are working together right now to obtain a grant to buy 2 anatomods tables. This is going to be a unique thing for the governor school and all the programs that are affiliated with the higher ed center, like some nursing programs, I think Virginia Highlands Community College and so forth. But what an anatomods table is, it's about the size of an examining table, and it's like a computer. It's got a screen on the length of the table, and it enables students to go in and do virtual dissections of cadavers. They're pretty expensive to get. That's why we're doing the grant to try to get it. But they're about $40,000 a piece. Our share, we're going to still have to cough up some money, but our share is going to be about $20,000, and the rest will come from the grant. So we're looking forward to that. Everybody's pretty excited about it, and it'll give our kids opportunities that you usually don't get till you get to a much higher level college or medical facility. I will leave with one last mention. We went into closed session. At the end of that meeting, we had a couple personnel issues to discuss, and when we came out of that, we voted unanimously to hire a woman by the name of Michelle Lilly. She was a secretary of some sort, I think maybe at Abington High School, but she came highly recommended to us. And Mike Robinson, our director, wanted her bad, and we approved it unanimously. And she's already at work, so we're hoping we'll have a pretty smooth transition as we lose Sylvia and go forward with Michelle Lilly. But anyway, does anybody have any questions, board members or public, about the governor's school?
You mentioned briefly that students could take a program or a class to help them with their SAT.
Yes.
Do they have to be participating in other governor's school classes, or can they just sign up to do that college prep?
That's a good question. It was set up primarily for the governor's school students. However, if we have room in the enrollment, it is open to other
That
students.
would be, a great thing.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a good thing.
And the kids have gotten tremendous results out of this PSAT prep. They almost always register school.
Right, that would be good, Dr. Cooker, that you make our high school principals and all the students aware, because that would help.
Thank you.
Very good report.
Thank you, Mr. Zayat, you've done a great job.
Well, I'll try to have another, we meet again in October, that'll be our final meeting of this year. I think there may be a dinner or something, maybe in November or something, but I'll have one more report later on in the year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our sales tax for June, I believe it's $463,167.58. The ADM is $32.15.
I'll make a motion, we pay it.
Well, that's the information. Thank you, Mr. Carson. Our maintenance report, any board member have any question on the maintenance or expenditure report? Okay, if not, future agenda items, do you have anything?
At this time, we don't have any.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Our next board meeting, I think, will be August the 4th, Thursday at 5. Calendar of the events coming up.
We have the teachers that are going to be reporting back on August the 9th, and our students will report back on August the 15th.
Thank you. Do you have anything for us this evening, Ms. Gibbs?
No, I just wish everybody a happy beginning of school year and a great transition with new leadership that's come on in the central office.
We thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks to everyone for coming this evening. We appreciate, Sean, your presence, the attorneys, Pat, everyone else back there, our administrators for coming. Okay. Do we have a motion that we adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Boston. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Garrett. And all in favor? With aye. Any opposed? Anyone home? You can stay here, the president.